things are finally getting wild on this series. After 5 whole videos of just talking about one game, I'm going to talk about 2 games in one video. This is so crazy, I'm even going to change the font from Impact to the new Arby's Saucy AF font. This video is about Raptor, Call of the Shadows, and Revolution Ace, because they are remarkably similar, and it's hard for me to talk about Revolution Ace without a discussion on Raptor, so that's what this is. And despite what the title and thumbnail for this video say, I'm going to start out with Revolution Ace. Just put Raptor first because I wanted that sweet, sweet SEO juice. So let's get into it. Here's why I love Raptor, Call of the Shadows, and why I love Revolution Ace. To start off with Revolution Ace, it's a top-down shmup. However, where a lot of shmups are difficult and require very precise play to dodge bullets and stay alive, this game is way easier than that. This game has an incredibly low skill floor. Your jet has a health bar and shields as soon as you start the game. This means you can take a lot of hits, which in shmup terms means you can make a lot of mistakes. Hell, your shields even recharge after a short time of not shooting. So, this game can be picked up and played by practically anyone. You don't have to be this guy to beat this game. This game can get difficult as you progress, especially if you play on Insane mode, so if you're looking for a bit of a challenge, you can find that here too. There's a system where enemies that leave the screen alive come back from a different angle with a yellow outline. The returning foes feels like an appropriate punishment on higher difficulties, and force you to adapt to your mistakes. The main campaign of this game is about 20 missions long, and has the most inconsequential story of any game I've talked about thus far. Personally, I never have ever needed a story to blow up future planes and tanks in a game like this, but if you want one, it exists. Here it is. AI took over, and you must blow them all up. That's the whole deal. Hope it doesn't spoil too much. Now, as you progress through the game, you level up, which feels a little strange for a game like this, but I like it. Each level unlocks something, like new weapons in the shop, new weapon slots for your jet, or a new perk to make you stronger. The perks are a good way to aid your playstyle, as they can make different weapons better or make you tougher. They add just a tiny bit of extra customization to your play. You can unlock them all, but that's a hefty grind. The best way to customize your play is picking your weapons. At its best, your jet can hold 6 different weapons, a shield, and a super weapon. There are 19 unique weapons to choose from, and upgraded versions of most of those, so you can bring whatever you like into battle. The only thing I don't like about this is that you have 2 weapon slots on your sides on your wings. Those make whatever weapon you put there fire directly to the left or the right, which isn't all that helpful in this game. Still, you can do whatever you want, so you could bring 6 machine guns into battle if you wanted. Your shields are less exciting, as you have one that is very strong but recharges slowly, one that's weaker and recharges fast, and then one that's kind of in the middle. There are 5 super weapons to choose from, which you play more offensively or defensively. If you find yourself really enjoying this game, there's tons to play here. You can play the campaign over again with increased difficulty, and there are quite a few skirmish levels to play as well. Some of these levels are random. You're mostly just picking a backdrop and getting random selections of enemies thrown at you. The point is, if you're craving this kind of gameplay, there's near unlimited amounts of it here. There's also multiplayer. You can bring another player to play co-op with you. I have never done this, so I can't really say how it works, but it's an option if you want it. The rest of the multiplayer is basically a score attack, where you play against someone who played the level previously and see who can get the higher score. It adds a little competitive aspect to it, but it's not anything special. The game feels good. I had tons of fun destroying all the enemies in this game. It's fun to have a game like this where you can just jump in and blow a bunch of stuff up. I really enjoy trying out different weapon combinations, especially if I crank up the difficulty and challenge myself to conquer it. I also like to get in and play on easy just to destroy everything and not worry. Sometimes it's just nice to have that in a game. That probably explains part of my love for EDF. Still, I really enjoy this game, and I wanted to talk about all the good things it does, and how I have fun with it. I wanted to say all of that first, because I do think part of my enjoyment for Revolution Ace comes from a nostalgic place. Not for this game, but for Raptor, Call of the Shadows. I love Revolution Ace, but I really love Raptor. The initial reason I played Revolution Ace was to get the feeling of Raptor again. Neither of these games are perfect, and Revolution Ace adds a few things to the mix, but they're incredibly similar games. Revolution Ace pretty much takes everything from Raptor. However, I feel most of the things that don't work in Revolution Ace were done better at Raptor. So now, let me tell you about how rad as hell Raptor is, while discussing what I feel Revolution Ace does wrong. Notice how I didn't mention the looks or soundtrack to Revolution Ace? Yeah, that's because they're both very bland and forgettable. Raptor has some nice pixel art, and while it can look a bit fuzzy when blown up to modern resolutions, it still shows that there was time and thought put into the art of each enemy in the backgrounds. In Revolution Ace, the enemies are fine enough design-wise, it just feels like there's no real soul put into them. They seem like mediocre Unreal Engine assets. The same goes for the soundtrack. In Revolution Ace, the music generally fits the action, what's going on in the game, but I never find myself humming it the next day. I didn't even bother to play any of it in this video. The Raptor music is great. It has an issue of being in very short loops, but I still love it to this day. This brings me to a point about this game. If you weren't aware, this game is old. It originally came out in 1994, so yeah, it's 24 years old. People younger than this game might be watching this video. A lot of the issues with this game are most likely because it was made in the mid-90s. But at least there are updated versions to get now. One from 2010 on GOG, one from 2015 on Steam. It even existed on iPhones at one point. It still works on modern computers, which is a beautiful thing. I mentioned that this and Revolution Ace are very similar games. They are in the same genre, they play pretty similarly, and you basically fly the same jet in both games. This game also has a low skill floor. As long as you start from the intended level, you shouldn't have too much trouble. The game is a little tougher in general than Revolution Ace, and you don't start with any shields, but your health does come back if you don't shoot for a little bit. The main campaign of this game is 30 missions, divided up into 3 sectors with 10 missions each. Each of these sectors has a vague theme. The first being kind of desert islands and related to oil. The second is like business buildings and jungle. And the third is just space. These go in line with the story, which is just as inconsequential as that in Revolution Ace, but it feels a bit more fun. See, you're a mercenary with deep-ass pockets, and some megacorp will pay you the big bucks to blow up the other megacorps. So, you blow up their assets, businesses, and secret space bases. You might be kind of a bad guy, but when you're done blowing everything up, you become what some like to call fuck you rich. So, you don't really have to listen to the naysayers. $10,774,410. Yeah, that's real rich. But until you reach that point, you can spend your money in the shop to upgrade your arsenal and buy some shields. Here things get a little different between these two games. The shop in Raptor is much smaller. You only have 11 selectable weapons, and 3 weapons you can have always equipped. You really only have 1 weapon slot too, but you could carry all 11 weapons into a mission with you. There are 3 weapons you can have always firing every time you pull the trigger. The machine guns, the plasma cannon, and the micromissiles. You start out with the machine guns, but after you've earned enough money, you can buy the other 2. This adds a feeling of progression to the game, rather than just getting new weapons. This feels like your base weapon is being upgraded. I would love to see more of this. Maybe like a 4th always equipped weapon in Raptor. Revolution Ace doesn't have anything quite like this. The level ups are nice, but the little upgrades you get from them don't really feel like you're advancing. I like the ability to cycle weapons better than being able to carry 6 always active weapons into a mission. There are a few reasons for this. In both games, there are ground and air targets. In Raptor, if your weapons can hit a ground enemy, they will. In Revolution Ace, you have to hit a button to fire specifically at the ground instead of the air. I know other games do this too, but it doesn't make me like it anymore. But in both games, you have to bring weapons that can hit ground targets, because ground enemies can be hard to ignore, and sometimes they're ground bosses to deal with. In Revolution Ace, you have to pre-plan your weapon selection, which might mean you played that level, died, and know to switch some weapons around. In Raptor, you can always have your ground problem solvers with you and switch to them whenever appropriate. Raptor really makes it feel like you have the tools to handle any situation when you have a few weapons to cycle through. In Revolution Ace, you might end up in a situation where you're just shit out of luck. The weapons feel a bit more fun in Raptor 2, even though in some cases they're basically the same between the two games. I know that a lot of this comes down to personal tastes here, and that Raptor has caught me in a vice-like grip of nostalgia, but I can't help it. Raptor has much more to destroy on the ground as well. There are tons of buildings that only serve to provide you with extra cash and wicked explosions. These are part of the background and the theming of the levels, which are all done very nicely. In the city levels, you can tell someone planned each building's location, and the backgrounds are well designed. They include little flourishes, like roads leading through the jungle to a hidden building, or that one bikini babe sunbathing on a building I feel bad for blowing up every time. Revolution Ace really doesn't have much of that. Most of the backgrounds are just mountain ranges that don't really have any personality to them. But the game does have dynamic water physics? Raptor doesn't have any of the extra levels that Revolution Ace has, but once you complete the campaign, you can keep playing and are advanced to the next difficulty with all your weapons, shields, and money carrying over. Raptor has very simple difficulty levels. Rookie is easy and Elite is hard. The increasing difficulty adds more enemies, and they do and take more damage. Not exactly fond of the extra damage part, as towards the end of things on Elite, it can feel pretty unfair. Revolution Ace has a bit more confusing difficulty, as you can just make the enemies have more health and do more damage by increasing from normal to hard, but you can also make a level of +1, +2, or +3, which adds more enemies. You can mix and match these settings in any way you see fit, which is actually pretty nice. So you can play a +3 easy or a +1 hard to fit the kind of challenge you want. The only issue Revolution Ace has here is that on Insane mode, sometimes red enemies show up, and they cannot be destroyed by your normal weapons. They just linger around the screen, being very annoying the entire time. I find this kind of difficulty more bullshit than anything else. It doesn't add any fun to the game, especially considering these guys will exit the screen and come right back for a second pass. The only issue these two games share is the bosses. Both games have pretty uninteresting bosses. Raptor has a little better visual design in its bosses, but they aren't very interesting in a gameplay sense. Most bosses in both games just let loose a barrage of attacks, and you have to find your opportunity to fight back. Some in Revolution Ace send out extra enemies, which makes the fights more annoying. And nearly every boss in Raptor has a stream of bullets that are targeted at you regardless of where you are on the screen. The boss fights can be tense, trying to get your hits in without dying, but at the same time they aren't very memorable. I feel like this video should have been called Why I Love Revolution Ace, but not as much as I love Raptor. But it does scratch that same itch because of how very similar they are. But that would have been a really terrible name. Can you even put that long of a name in the title of YouTube? Despite my complaints about Revolution Ace, I really do think it's a good game. I still have fun with it, even though I've played it tons already. It has some flaws and features I don't like, but I still want to jump in and play a level or two every now and then. It's simple fun, where you can choose to butt your head against some level on +3 hard for a good challenge, or just play it on easy when you feel like you really need to crush it. Raptor is much the same. It's simple fun, but has less ability to choose exactly what and how you'd like to play when you do. It only has a set number of levels, but it has much fewer flaws in gameplay. The explosions are more satisfying, and the game's better to look at and listen to. I really think that if you like Revolution Ace, you'll love Raptor. And if you love Raptor and are looking for something very similar but newer, you'll probably like Revolution Ace. Both of these games are quite cheap, and I'm sure you could find a deal on each of them with very little effort. I really do recommend Raptor to everyone. Just go out and buy it if you've never played it. You'll have a great time. Revolution Ace is a little harder to recommend. It all depends on how much the issues I mentioned might bother you, but I still think it's worth playing. Maybe just wait for a sale? I think I got a 4-pack for something like 60 cents at one point. I feel my love of Raptor might come from the fact that I first played a shareware copy of this game when I was 7, and I've played it off and on ever since then. This game has been with me only slightly longer than MechWarrior 2. Does this give any idea of how I came to be the way I am? I would just like more shmups like this, with upgrade paths, stores, and new weapons, all this kind of stuff. Why aren't there more? Maybe I should just start writing down all the things I want in a game. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a bit different with it being 2 games at the same time, but I felt there was no way to talk about Revolution Ace without talking about Raptor. Please do all the YouTube stuff that you always do. And I really would appreciate it if you shared this video around. Show your friends, share it on Facebook, all that kind of stuff. It really does help me out. I'm small on YouTube, and the only way people see these videos is if they subscribe and do all that, or you put it on somewhere else so more people will see it. It's the only way I get new views. If you have any suggestions of games you want to see me discuss, just let me know, especially if there's something similar to Raptor. And with that, I will see you in the next video, where we'll be driving in circles with FMV cutscenes.